To the very last CFSI CyberFence episode webinar for 2025, at least for this month, which is the Cyber Awareness Month 2025. All right, before I start, very special thank you for my guests, right? Deodat Ganga has blessed us with some of his time today, time out of his very busy Friday. I know his Fridays are really, really hectic with work and rich reports and stuff. So I'm very honored that you're here. Alex has been with me from day one. So Alex, I'm not sure if you're just bored, but thank you very much for being here, sir. It's very much appreciated.
Glad to be here.
Um, yeah. All right. So yeah, today's webinar is more about it's more like a open discussion with us just talking about a very important topic, right? Which is protecting critical infrastructure of the Caribbean in particular. Um, we'll start off a little bit with what is critical infrastructure, and then, of course, you'll realize why protection is so important on its own, right? It's self-explanatory almost. Um, so you'll know about CFSI a bit. Enterprise, we do everything in cybersecurity. Enterprise risk consultancy, pen testing, vulnerability services. CFSI alone does not do this stuff. That blue logo that we have there, that's Alex's company, Tier 10 Technologies. So both Alex and I pretty much do the same of everything. And Alex also teaches, both Dale and Alex teach for CFSI. CFSI is the only place where you could do some of the EC Council courses in the Caribbean, like Certified Ethical Hacker, Computer Hacking, Forensics Investigator, Threat Intelligence Analyst, Certified Network Defender. Pretty much anything under the EC Council. We're the only ones in the Caribbean authorized to do classes and run the exams for it. All right, so all of us here were authors and technical reviewers for all of these books, so we have a fair idea of what we've been talking about so far. All right. If you haven't already, feel free to add us on LinkedIn. All right. That's my profile there with the 4 books. We have Alex with the brightest smile in the universe, as always. This picture always makes me smile. And then we have Mr. Handsome himself, Deodat Ganga. Strikingly, good-looking guy there.
Striking
Wonderful
resemblance.
picture. Yeah, yeah. Well-rounded, as you could see.
Yeah, yeah.
Johnny, I think Johnny had a family errand to run. I'm not sure if he will be with us, but we have to absolutely call his name. The same with my good friend here, Mr. Joel Gooding. If he has time, he will be jumping on. If not, Joe, thanks for everything. All right, so let's talk about critical infrastructure in the Caribbean, and we'll just sort of go around, take turns, share thoughts and stuff about critical infrastructure, experiences with it. All of us would have experience with it, with risk assessments, pen testing, vulnerability assessments, even incident response. All right, so this is why I wanted to end it off with this. We spent a lot of time this month talking about very big threats like ransomware threats to the Caribbean. We focused on 2 of the biggest threats out there, which would be the Lockbit ransomware group, which is now up to Lockbit version 5, and of course the Killin ransomware group, which is spelled Quilin, but it's pronounced Killin because they've been quite active in the Caribbean. I think there have been at least maybe 5 um, publications, actual publications of victims, but I think there may be about 7 to 9 attacks. 7 to 9 meaning those additional ones, they happened, but they weren't listed by the group for whatever reason. And at the end of this, I wanted to bring that up a bit because I've been noticing a trend that's becoming quite dangerous, maybe more dangerous than the ransomware groups themselves, which is where you have insider ransomware attacks happening now in companies. So it'll look like it's from a group like Lockbit and Killin and so on. But remember, you have a lot of these groups offering affiliate programs now. So pretty much anyone can become an affiliate, or somebody could just pretend or simulate an attack that would look like it's from one of these groups, but they themselves are running the entire attack from the inside. And remember, that would be so very easy to pull off because someone is already on the inside. They don't have to negotiate with an admin or something like that. They may already have keys to the kingdom, as we say. right? So when we wrapping up and stuff, we could probably talk about that a little bit because I think that's something very important to look at and which is actually happening. I'm not just making this up. This is not hypothetical. This is actually happening. Right? And I'll tell you all how I came to that conclusion and where I found sources and stuff. Right? So these are some of the things that we want to look at today. It's really just 6 items, but we want to just have a discussion about these 6 items, right? So we know about regular infrastructure, which some of us think about as hardware, software, cloud storage. I mean, it doesn't have to be hardware only, because when you hear infrastructure, like even infrastructure throughout your country, you might think roads, but it's also water, electricity. So it's pretty much services that you have, right? But what are the critical services that you would have? So in IT and cyber and everyday life, right? Because everyone is connected now, everyone is dependent on technology. Um, I wasn't expecting this slide to pop up. But we need to look at critical services, right? So I think this is Alex, I, and Deo as well, because technologically we're always somewhere where we're not supposed to be, sometimes in real life too. All right, so with critical infrastructure, um, it's not just limited to what you might think about, what are critical services. Okay, so we have power plants, oil refineries, your water and stuff, but we have a lot of other systems that if they go down, will have a very serious impact on all our lives and even the economies themselves, right? So even banking, payment gateways, government data centers, all of these things I mentioned there, um, they are all very, very important to us. Even the ISPs and stuff, because especially in the Caribbean, we don't have that uh, amount of ISPs that you would have in the larger developed countries like the US, Canada, UK, Australia, wherever. Um, we maybe have like what it's basically just Digicel, sorry, Flow, Amplia, V Mobile, but I think even throughout the Caribbean is mostly Digicel and Flow, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Actually, most of the islands is just flow.
Just
To be
Flow.
honest,
Yeah, yeah.
flow
Oh yeah,
everywhere.
right. Because I remember when I went to Curacao a couple of times, I think it's just Flow throughout the islands
Just
and
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So that creates a really big problem should one of these happen to go down for quite some time. I
Hmm?
think I think the Caribbean might have access to Starlink now, but
Yeah, depends on the island. Yeah,
yeah, I think it's kind of like now being rolled out. So I'm not sure what's the extent yet, but I know it's something new. And well, knowing Elon Musk and his work, it should only be a matter of time before we see some significant movements inside of there. So basically, if you think about anything that you can't live without, we're not speaking about Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and WhatsApp, but access to those things, right? How do we get access to those? Because we provided with internet from whatever ISP. All right. So I'll just I think I just wanted to expand a little bit on like some of the dangers of just having one ISP where critical infrastructure is concerned.
yeah. So one of the major issues when it comes to remember critical infrastructure, the whole idea is that this infrastructure is what supports the general running of your country and society. That effectively is what critical infrastructure boils down to. So, like Shiva was saying, it's not just your oil refineries or anything like that. It's also your banking systems, it's your healthcare systems, and all of that. And just picture a scenario where you only have one point of getting communication in or out of your organization. For example, one single ISP. Now imagine some disaster does occur. Good example would be what's happening in Jamaica right now. Imagine you only have one provider where you can't get communication out, like for example, to request help, to request support. For example, let's say you have cloud infrastructure that stores critical information about your customers, like for example, a backup, and you're trying to restore to get things back operational. You have one way out, and that's the one way that's out is the one way that's also down as well. So we have a major delay in just restoring basic functionality and operations due to this reliance on a single point of communication. And that's one of the biggest drawbacks that no failover, no ability to function as you would like to function.
And I mean, it's sad that we have to make that. example, but that's exactly what's happening in Jamaica, right? Because Dale and I, we have a colleague in Jamaica, and I think for most of the week he was just working intermittently when they had power now and again. But I guess they were on parts of the islands, they were still waiting on power to be restored. So imagine for a couple of days now. Well, Dale, I just want to pick your brain a little bit on something, right? Because Dale is one of, I would say, one of the top risk managers that I know, and he works on a lot of interbanking payment systems, doing risk assessments for cloud-hosted services and stuff like that. So Dale, um, what what do you think some of the risks would be to the financial system in particular with having these payment systems and cloud systems going down?
I mean, I think one of the most major concern, or one of the things that the general public doesn't understand, is the world is no longer analog. Everything is digital. We have an interconnectivity um, between everybody and everything that relies on, at the end of the day, the service providers, the ISPs. Um, and generally here in the Caribbean, we do have that redundancy that we can rely on. We really and truly have a major, I would call it like a business resilience risk, an operational resilience risk,
Hmm.
where if we have an issue where we can't reach it downstream systems that do validations, that do checks. Let's say I was trying to get money to send to a hospital to get a surgery done for you immediately, and we had an anchor breaking a line, a deep sea line that interconnects the entire Caribbean. Um, and we can't get this connectivity going. People don't understand that when they think, you said it quite right. When people hear infrastructure, they think physical, they think hardware. They don't understand that infrastructure also means everything involved in the connections, or in the interconnectivity of the communication that we rely on. So, resiliency wise, I see the entire Caribbean at risk, um, because we do have
Hmm.
that redundancy. One simple thing, look, simple as is, if something goes down, somebody damages a line way up in the Bahamas or something, we feel the effects here in Trinidad.
Does some and just to wrap up, I mean, we hearing like both of y'all say the same thing, and I agree because we have very limited resources. So it would be nice if I'm not sure if there is currently, but I know it would be nice if we have all the governments work together. I know there are issues right now with CARICOM happening, but still, I think is beneficial to everyone because even when you look at the unpredictable nature of nature itself, right? Yes, we could probably look at, preparing for things like cyber attacks and what happens if lines go down and even if you have the cuts sometimes in the undersea cables and stuff like that. But with the hurricanes and stuff, sometimes I guess is really just something that's to learn as you go. But I mean, you have strength in numbers, if they want to take that approach. But again, that's sometimes where the line is blurred a little bit because we have a bit of blurring within the boundaries specifically of what critical infrastructure is. Because like we were saying earlier, 20 years ago, when you think about critical infrastructure, it's just plants and equipment. But today, as both Dale and Alex were saying, it's really about the data, the digital platforms, and what makes all of those systems function, right? So even when you think about ERP systems and utilities, your payment gateways, all of these things that we just take for granted, how long could we go without it? When you look at the hospitals as well, it's not just about payments systems for hospitals, but a lot of them depend on technology too. And even though this comes across on the next slide, there have been instances in hospitals where ransomware attacks have led to at least about 75 to 80 deaths so far over the last 5 years because they depend on technology, sharing of information, all of these things. So it really brings about the need for public and private collaboration if you have to consider serious protection, because it's not just about the guards and the firewalls anymore. As Dale was saying and stuff, is about resiliency and is operational now, right? You have to look at physical and operational domains now when we're moving forward. All right, so I know more about the ransomware attacks on critical infrastructure, but it could be any and everything that would affect as what we were talking about so far. Alex has more experience on dealing with some of this with critical infrastructure. Alex, you have any specific attacks you want to reference or anything?
Of ransomware being very common, the other one being the supply chain breaches,
Mm,
where like in some companies they outsource the maintenance and management of the critical infrastructure. For example, the generators or the power plant or the water treatment facilities. It's all handled by a third party, and they are breached. And by extension, because they are the ones that manage your infrastructure is breached. So I've had that happen already. Um, in terms of, we did see some interstate, meaning state versus state, kind of attacks against power utilities, because of the that's currently going on. We did see some of that occurring. Other state entities, they may not have been directly related to a specific state, but the attack signatures were very reminiscent of state-sponsored attackers as well, from that standpoint. And then, because a lot of the infrastructure is being migrated to the modernized versions, a lot of the modern, like for example, sensors and PLCs that are introduced into environments now, the original versions, they have network connectivity. Now these are coming with Bluetooth connectivity, cellular connectivity, and regular Ethernet connectivity. So the threat landscape now has evolved significantly, because a lot of times organizations, particularly if they do installations themselves, I've seen where they plug in these things into the environment and leave, like we keep from the
Alex
previous
breaking up a little bit.
webinars, default configurations implemented. Hear me? Hear me?
Yeah, here, you you're
Better
just
now?
breaking up a little bit
Not better
now and
now?
then.
Okay.
Yeah. Dave, jump in
Okay.
now.
Yeah. There's
Um,
digital
Alex
service
said
failure.
something. Alex said something that kind of triggered me there, and he was talking about the third parties. So people don't consider third parties as part of their infrastructure. We have third parties providing us with so many things now. Everybody and anybody using so many different SaaS solutions and whatnot. Yes, you want to hold yourself to a high standard. You need to hold your third parties to the same standard that you hold
A similar
yourself,
standard. Yep.
or even higher. You need these stringent controls and policies in place. You need to conduct your due diligence, do your third-party risk assessment. How many breaches this year happened via third parties?
How many happen because of DNS?
But that's true there to add to what they were saying, because the majority of very large breaches that you might hear about, apart from DNS, is that you hear has happened through a third party. The biggest one that we've been hearing about recently is from Salesforce. So Salesforce was breached, and they haven't really said too much about how it's affecting the clients and stuff. But me being on the dark web so frequently, there are hacker groups and ransomware groups that are selling access to clients of Salesforce, right? So it's all, I'm not just making this up. This is not just an opinion or anything. This is actually out there if you read up on it. So this is the problem that we have. We take certain things for granted just because Microsoft is a very large company, very large billion-dollar company. Okay, let's use Microsoft products. Why? Because it's Microsoft. But if you've been keeping up with the news over the last year, you will realize that it used to be like every month, then it went down to every 2 weeks, and now it's almost every week. You have some service going down with Microsoft. I think this week it was what, Defender in June this week, or something like that, right?
Azure
And
portal.
Azure portal essentially, right? So when you look at all these giant corporations that are inside organizations and offer third-party services and stuff, that's exactly what they was talking about there. So even with critical infrastructure with backups and SaaS services and what you have there, it's I agree with these guys fully. You have to look at the security of your third party
Yeah.
exactly, if not more, as they were saying, with what you would put on your own. So let me
What
give you all a personal example of what went on in 2023 with TSTT, which is the one of the ISPs in Trinidad, when they got hit with by what was it? The ransomware was it? I, I
I was gonna say play, but it wasn't play.
no, it wasn't.
Because
I,
I've
I
dealt
can't
with play
remember.
so much.
We've been through so many ransomware attacks. Anyway,
Akira. I think it was
no, it wasn't
Akira.
Akira. It wasn't Akira.
Wasn't? Okay.
No, we'll remember it soon enough, right? Alex, you can Google it. We wrote
Yeah,
articles
and that's
about it
exactly what
and
I'm gonna do.
were interviewed about it. It's not ransomware, but anyway, right? Trinidad was hit. Actually, the two major ISPs were hit by the same ransomware group, and I was really badly affected by this particular outage because it was early in October 2023, and my son decided that he would be ready to come out into the world. And my wife went into labor the night when the attack happened. And we tried to call everybody and anybody that we could because she went into labor early. So it was about a month early as well. So we had some serious complications there. And we could hardly get through to any of the doctors. Everything was down, and people who were on that service with B Mobile and TSCT and stuff, we had some serious issues getting to them. And then we finally got through, and they told us, okay, well, just head across to the hospital immediately because they have the neonatal ICU unit there. We went across there, got there, and they had difficulties getting through to the doctors as well. So it was issues where the neonatal ICU unit was full to capacity and they did not have additional ventilators. And there was talk about even sharing ventilators, but for premature babies and stuff, that could mean death. Right. So fortunately, we were able to get through to a private hospital after many, many attempts, right? And we had to jump from public into private. And from there, he was fine. And he is the most precious little thing in my life right now. But things could have gone very, very sideways for not just me, but a lot of people at that point in time. So that's a real world example right there, where you have a ransomware group attacking an ISP, but the people that depend on those ISPs. So it's not just about us, but think about the airports and for other people that had scheduled services or whatever it might have been at that point in time. You have so many things that could go wrong there, right? So it
The ransomware was Ransom X.
ransom X. How yeah, wow, how can we forget ransom X? And the thing about ransom X is that the data that they put out there is still out there. That's 2 years later. All the data is still out there. It's still fully accessible by anyone that goes onto the ransomware, the Ransom X site. It's been accessed, I think, by now over 100,000 times, right? So when critical infrastructure gets attacked as well, and you have groups like Ransom X and stuff putting the data out there, it's still out there and it could possibly be used for future attacks as well, right? So you have so many, as they was talking about, the downstream services that could be affected when you have attacks on critical infrastructure. And Trinidad is just one, but the others, I think you've had in Curacao, you've had in Jamaica, you've had in a lot of Caribbean countries out there, right? So the resilience that we expect is going to take some serious work and planning. I know things are always happening and things are always going on, right? But we always have to remember too that some of these groups and some of these threat actors, it's like the last point that I have down there. There's an ever evolving threat landscape taking place. All right. So it really is a wake up call, I would say, because even if you look at some of the threats that happened to some of the largest healthcare providers in the world, it happened this
Hmm.
year in particular, right? And you have things like even power plants and stuff. What's the systems that they use? Is it SCADA systems
Well,
that
SCADA just
usually
one
implement?
component of it. SCADA is
One
like a
component, yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
But if you have threat actors that are really versed in exploiting those, which we do, right? We
Yeah.
have
Eh,
some serious problems.
just some stats around that.
Yeah, go
Last
ahead.
last year, I think it was 9 reported active groups in that focuses specifically on critical infrastructure. This year, it is 23 reported active groups that focus only on critical infrastructure attacks. This
And
is both ransomware, phishing, you name it.
mhm.
That's the numbers we're looking at for this year.
And the attack path that we have for critical infrastructure is not much different than what you would have for
Mm.
any type of organization where they would get entry via phishing, social engineering, or some sort of insider threat where you have a disgruntled employee. You have typical exploitation of remote services like RDP, a VPN without
Misconfigured
MFA
services.
multi-factor. Yeah, the misconfigured services right up there with RDP because it's a lot easier now with the help of AI. If you all had a look at the webinar that Alex and I did on AI and dark web cybercrimes and stuff, like 50 US, 100 US, whatever, you get full AI kits that could go ahead and help you exploit these kinds of things there. And then you get to the inside where they do the lateral movement from um, the actual network, but it's a bit different where it gets the lateral movement because yes, you get on the
Yeah.
network, but you get to core operational systems, and this is what could bring down a lot. Um, I'm not going to call the name of the power company, but I remember reading an article. There was a major blackout, and I'm not even going to call the country. All right, so a major blackout in a Caribbean country about 10 years ago. Everything went down for a day and a half or something like that. I'm sorry, half day, about
Yeah,
maybe
12
14
hours.
hours. Yeah, and when I read the follow-up articles by a couple of managers inside of the end, people that they interviewed, they said that it was because the NTP server went down. The NTP server is your network timing protocol server, and I think that basically just maintains the time across all your servers. You could correct me if I'm wrong,
It just
but
synchronizes the time. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, when you think about that,
Yeah.
as there was something wrong with just that little tiny NTP server protocol there, and the entire country went down for 14
Yeah. And
hours.
it's not funny thing is not even the time really, it's to ensure that the generators, their frequency that they output, which is the 60 hertz that everyone is aware of, that they all in sync with that 60 hertz and it's not out of sync. That's
Yeah.
all what
Uh,
the NTP does really and truly.
NTP has brought down banks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
NTP
yeah,
is
Yeah.
NTP different. Something as
it's
simple as timekeeping.
everyone is focusing on DNS and DNS, and DNS has brought down Google and Amazon, sorry, not Google, Microsoft and Amazon, but maybe Google next. I don't know. But everyone is blaming DNS on it. But something that's very, very simple inside an organization as NTP could be overlooked, right? So, yes, you have critical systems. What are the critical protocols involved with running on these critical systems as well?
Correct.
So the danger in this added to that, if we look at it added to the evolving threat landscape, is that in the article that was published, the fact that they came out and said that it was because of an NTP issue that should never have been disclosed, right? It's a you have to think about these things like war tactics. For example, like in Trinidad right now, we have so many of the warships out in the Caribbean and stuff, and people are asking, well, when are the warships coming? When are the warships leaving? How long are they going to stay? You can't reveal this type of information out there, right? So you have a lot of things that you have to consider. It's not just the systems, it's not just the protocols, it's also the third party vendors and so many different things. We only have like a half hour left to talk about this, but this is probably like a week long or month long seminar really when you think about it. All right, so we have all three of us are well versed in causes of attacks and the what could lead to possible attacks out here. But the number one issue that we have is outdated infrastructure, right? And a lot of people might be saying, okay, well, it's a critical, service. Why don't you have outdated infrastructure? But let me just open by saying something. If you look at Trinidad, for example, Trinidad and Tobago, we've had a steady decline in forex and management of forex and issuing of forex and stuff over the last 5 to 10 years, maybe, right? And because of that lack of forex, it is very difficult sometimes to get access to not just hardware, but the software, the subscription, the additional management, third parties and stuff. Um, if we could pay in TT dollars, sure, great, but the way that the world operates is not like that. So it's not as easy to just look at upgrading your software. And Alex, you could probably jump in a little bit here with the actual services that run on this infrastructure is not always easy to upgrade that itself.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was going to say. One of the reasons here is the forest, but one of the major reasons why we have outdated infrastructure in critical operations is that it's not as simple as a regular IT network where you can just go and shut down a server, plug in the new one, and then start back up. When you shut down some critical services in, like, for example, a power plant, that ideally means power cannot be generated. So you're looking at a potential blackout for some locations. Oil and gas, the same thing. Imagine you have to shut down the processing of oil. That means you cannot output oil for a period of time. And this downtime is not like an IT where it may be like a 2 hours, 3 hours. You're looking at maybe days of downtime to get a system down, make a change, and then bring it back up. And then make sure that when it comes back up in phases in a lot of cases, because you can't just turn everything back on immediately. A good example is the power generation. So that's one of the major reasons why we still have outdated infrastructure. Another reason we still have outdated infrastructure is that it simply just works still. A lot of instances is that are occurring is that we have infrastructure that's over 30 years old in some companies here within the Caribbean, and they just work fine. The only issue that you have is, well, you can't get a replacement for it. So that is a major issue. You cannot just get a one-to-one replacement for the outdated infrastructure. And well, the cost, honestly, is one of the major factors, like in the banking and the financial sectors. I mean, pretty much everyone knows the infrastructure that runs on banks is like AS400 systems. And the cost to replace some of these systems that were implemented 20 years ago is the cost of their yearly operations. So they cannot justify going and spend $20-30 million to go replace two systems just to modernize them when the current old systems still run and do what they're supposed to do. So it's a double-edged sword from that perspective.
Dale, I want to pick your brain again here, right? So because Dale does a lot of assessments on the risk assessments, right? On the monitoring as well of systems and services there. So another thing to add to Alex's point there is that because some of these things that were installed anywhere from 30 to 50 years ago, they work and you don't touch them. Um, the lack of real-time monitoring and incident response is an issue. So, they wonder if you just wanted to jump in on like exactly how important it is to have real-time or any kind of monitoring, but most of real-time monitoring of systems in place.
So especially for outdated infrastructure, so outdated and obsolete software and hardware is inherently vulnerable. I said this before. I'll keep saying it for the rest of my life, right? Doesn't matter if there isn't a CVE out there. You could scour the entire internet, ask every threat intelligence officer on the planet, and they don't know any vulnerability with this. It's just a matter of time for somebody to find one. Just because you don't have a documented one doesn't mean that there isn't one. So you need to monitor the extra monitoring then. You put extra resources behind these outdated infrastructure, maybe more alerts or finer tuned alerts behind this. Because, I mean, the threat actors, they come, they see outdated stuff, they're going to start to hit that immediately, looking for any way to exploit this. Because they know, just like us, that there will be a vulnerability somewhere inside it. It's just a matter of time for them to find it. And these guys drinking Monster and Red Bull and waking 40 to 72 hours non-stop.
Very specific right now.
Just just hitting that there. So I think that like for example, you're a company offering your MSSP services, you're doing 24/7 SOC and whatnot. you should be able to identify these gaps. You should be able to tell these people you provide services to, hey, give me a list of all the outdated stuff you have. We'll put a little more focus on this. Because me as a risk advisor, then if I'm doing an assessment and I see outdated software, risk one time. I'm not taking no chance that I call in risks like I going mad. Right?
And it's apart from that too, you'll just forgive us if the quality drop in a little bit because I see in some buffering every now and then, right? We have a lack of skills and expertise on the cyber side inside a lot of these technical environments, right? And for example, operational technology is not the same really as networking technology. There's a lot of intricate different cogs that you have to know about apart from or on top of the regular networking and so on that you would usually be accustomed to. So you have people who are certified in cybersecurity, but then there are different types of cybersecurity as well. So you have OT, operational technology, cybersecurity as well. So for example, when I do some pen testing and vulnerability assessments for the energy sector, I have to be very, very careful with the tools that we use to scan some of these things. You can't use the regular tools that we would scan internally for regular networks because some of these pieces of equipment here are so very sensitive. Apart from being very old, they're very, very sensitive. And then you could create a DOS attack. You could bring down equipment. You could burn out equipment depending on what type of test that you're running. I'll let Alex jump in on that in a little bit. But the training that you have and that you afford the persons within the critical infrastructure sector, it has to be very, very explicit to that service and that sector. Even if a lot has to be spent on it. They have to have a significant training budget, or you have to have a lot of internal training, awareness training as well, going in inside of there. Alex, I don't know if you could give a example of maybe what you would have done for like pen tests on a OT environment without calling, the obvious specifics.
Yeah. Um, I could give two examples. One that actually was a major hit, and one that was actually pretty well executed. The one that we had a major issue on was against a bank, to be honest. And they had a core switch that allowed the communication between like the tellers and the ATMs and the core servers that would handle the processing of transactions. And we did clarify with them that these switches were up to date and whatever. And we ran our general pen testing tools against it, just like very basic discovery and scanning of it. And it shut down those switches for a period of time. And the bank couldn't process transactions anywhere on the island for 4 hours. This is tellers, this is ATMs not being able to handle transactions. You could have gone to the ATM and do withdrawals, and they would not be recorded against your account for that point in time. So they had to shut down the ATMs from running as well because of that simple thing as the switch being overloaded with effectively, like from a regular IT perspective, a basic scan. For anybody who has done the classes with us, you know what those basic scans look like. It's not much traffic, but it shut down the switch. And on the other side, I did an assessment for both an energy company and a power generation company. And those assessments were done so systematic and in so many phases that what could have been a 2-week, 3-week process turned into a 10-week process because we had to be so diligent in not sending that kind of traffic across things that handle the switching over of relays, the remote monitoring of substations, the remote monitoring of the refineries themselves. We had to be careful in sending packets so not to trigger anything, not to send the wrong information across the wireless communication that they use because of the scale of some of these places, you can't use wired communication. So you didn't want to do anything to disrupt that wireless communication as well. So we had to be extremely careful in all of the scanning that we did to not, trigger a relay from shutting down something. The worst case scenario would have been what you call the SIS system, the safety information, the safety instruction system, basically, from triggering. and shutting down parts of the plant. That's what we didn't want to happen particularly.
I think I stressed out just by hearing that stuff.
For me, it was fun, honestly.
You're speaking about something and all, Shiva, when it comes back
Mhm.
to the monitoring. A lot of people say they have like these dedicated security teams, 24/7, 365 SOC and whatnot, and they have two people working,
Yes.
right?
Very true.
That in itself, so when I do third-party risk assessments, I request the number of employees in the dedicated security team, the monitoring team, and whatnot. I don't need to know job roles. I don't need to know these kind of things, but I need to know how many resources you're allocating to this, because you can't be running a 24/7, 365 SOC. You have 2 people, 3 people running it, and you're doing this for a company that operates within the entire region. I mean,
Which is actually what
what
not
everybody does.
yeah, I don't want to say everybody, but
But pretty much
that
everybody.
that is the majority of them out there.
You have 1 or 2 people doing the jobs. I mean, they're not okay. So like, you're not gonna say, all right, this person is in charge of monitoring this. This one is this. This one has this job description. You have one person doing the jobs at 20 different people or 20 different job titles. You're not paying them properly, and I will bring this up because it directly relates to this. A
Mhm.
ransomware group could come and say, hey, you doing all this work, they paying you 1/10 of what you're supposed to be getting. Here's what
Yep.
we could give you $1 million US in crypto, or $1 million
Just do
US
this.
dollars worth in crypto. Just do this. Something that
Or just,
takes 30 seconds of your time, and you
yeah,
just you go about your business, go by the bar, drink up.
just turn off the sensors for 2
Yeah.
seconds.
Or just go behind the switch and plug in this payload through this USB, let it run for 10 seconds, pull it out, go.
And that is something I want to address too, because I know actually know one person who's been approached. I think it might be by a ransomware group. We think, we're not sure, but it is for sure that they were approached by a threat actor to place something inside the organization. Um, but in everything, just to wrap up this aspect of it, which is the high level, right? The one of the problems that we have is that you have insufficient investment in resilience in particular, is what they was talking about there, because the budgets that you have for critical infrastructure protection, they often seen as a cost and not as a strategic investment, right? Because the absence of something called, you have downtime cost modeling, right? Which the decision makers themselves, they underestimate the impact of the disruption, which is like what Alex was saying, which was up to 10 weeks, right? Which is kind of mind blowing to understand what happens out there. But we don't really have any regulatory, compliance or requirements that state that, okay, well, if something happens, you need to have it up in a certain amount of time. You need to get it out there. You need to inform customers, clients, and stuff. But it's something that you can't afford to look at it as an expense anymore, because even if we go back to your third party suppliers and so on, they would probably know exactly what I'm talking about here. But if you try to run assessments, third party assessments, with some of the people that supply services and goods and stuff, and you'll realize, if you ask for just some of the very, very basic, like, do you have a cybersecurity policy, some sort of best practice policy or something like that. And they may say, well, we're currently working on it, or not yet, or we're working on developing it. So the problem there is that some of these companies that offer these services, they might be offering some very, very important services to critical infrastructure sectors, but they themselves may not necessarily be wary or aware of, on top of cybersecurity and handling data and confidentiality, and how compromise from their end in particular could have an impact on critical infrastructure, right? So it's just to understand how it all ties into everything else, right? When you think about, put it into to regular stuff, right? In Trinidad and Tobago, for God knows what reason, we had a transportation or road company try to fix or build an extra lane on a highway that was maybe 200 meters that took nearly 2 years, 3 years, I can't remember. And that pretty much had standstill traffic day, night, weekends between north, central, and south. So people were affected. The times you would have had to leave home and get back home, get to work, appointments, flights, all of these things. But when you look at the economy as well, a lot of people might have probably said, okay, well, I'm coming from north and I have to go to south, but there's so much traffic heading down central. Can I get this elsewhere? Can I get this otherwise instead of having to go down there? So even when you look at the economical impact as well, right? All of they're all tied in, right? So just one little thing could cause so much downstream impact to everything else, right? So now that we have some of these things here, what I wanted to talk about is actually um, I put the wrong header here, right? Is actually some protective measures in particular. All right, so yeah, I put the wrong header. It's not high level causes, but these are actually protective measures. So that what we could look at to help protect and strengthen the critical infrastructure out there. Guys, I'll let you all jump in first on this one.
Hey, when I go, you
Can,
want me go?
The main thing I'm gonna speak about is that employee training, mandatory employee training. No if, no but, no maybe, and the frequency. So people, a lot of people, I think 1 year is not enough. I think monthly security awareness training because people don't take it seriously. And more stringent disciplinary recourse. I mean, you can't be going and clicking on Samsung going to give you a brand new S25 if you just complete this survey, come into
but
your weekly,
why? I want my new Samsung, but why?
After freeness.
right? Um, I mean, and Alex says it well. I don't usually like to say it like that, but common sense, right?
Um, I don't think common sense is that common anymore. I think I don't know if it's uncommon sense that we have, or sometimes I make a training joke and say that God gives some people common sense and they give him back change. Um, I I I don't know because sometimes it's so glaringly obvious, right?
Yep.
That I mean, if it it happens, right? But sometimes it's so glaringly obvious because, like I repeatedly said on these webinars, I have never won anything by clicking on a link in my entire life, and I never will. I don't think most of you will either. I've gotten a call this morning from someone that was operating some I really can't. They are probably on this webinar, right? But we were speaking about something where the members were in a employee group chat, and someone, of course, shared one of these things about you have free so and so to the employee group chat, and this was like maybe 300 people in this chat, and they all clicked on the link and they all forwarded the link, and they were trying to see where it originated from. But by that time, it was just too late because everyone clicked on it, everyone forwarded to at least 5 people. So that's 300 people forwarding to about 5 people each. So that's 1,500 people, all in the space of maybe about 2, 3 hours. That happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's and I don't think these people were really tech savvy to begin with, so I'll give them that. But I mean, inside an organization, I think before people start working, one of the first things that's done, because as they rightfully said, I agree with quarterly and worst case, sorry, monthly and worst case quarterly. It should never be 1 year or twice a year or something like that. And before people start working inside any organization, I would always recommend that they have some sort of awareness training that this is the type of data. If we lose access to this later, it is going to cost us this amount. It is probably going to lead to loss of jobs. It might include your jobs as well. Um, I think the problem there is policy enforcement because okay, so I clicked something. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I mean, yes, things do happen, but sometimes you just have general neglect, right? Sometimes you have disgruntled employees too, and this is an actual case where you have some disgruntled employees and they click on everything. Why? Because they hope that something is going to happen where it will lead to something untoward inside the organization, right? So we don't have anything in place to monitor this type of, I guess, policy abuse in most organizations, right? But I think rather than punishing and stuff, I think trying to get the message across and just having everyone protect themselves, it works a lot better in what I've seen because at CFSI, TTM, we do a lot of training for companies large and small. And they're usually very appreciative because what happens is that when you think about it, ever so often, especially if you look at quarterly, every other quarter, you could look at so many new threats that would have come about since you did training in the last quarter, maybe last couple months or month before. Right? So people are usually generally very well receptive to this type of training and information. Laws.
So listen, I believe if we here in the Caribbean make it mandatory to adhere to some sort of regulation, like let's say GDPR,
Mhm.
businesses would start scrambling for their lives.
Not just businesses,
Mm,
governments. You see, it has to
Yeah,
start from
government. Yeah.
our
it has
laws
to
are
start from
too
the top.
lax. You
It has
know,
to start from the top, to be honest,
we
because
we we you see what I like about GDPR is because they put a focus on protecting people and their data.
Mhm.
We don't care here, right? I say it plain. I will say it plain. We don't have the protection as regular people that most of the people in Europe have from their governments. Um,
Right.
it's just we have certain things in place, yes, but we have it because we need to have it. So we align ourselves to ISO 27001, NIST guidelines, whatever it is. All
Mhm.
companies saying, yeah,
mm,
we follow these frameworks and whatnot. But are there actual laws in place governing how these organizations protect, I won't say client data, but citizen data, the data that all of us are now giving every company because they need it. They need phone numbers, addresses, IDs, where you work. Um, they need where your grandfather middle name was. I mean, the deed for the land everybody fighting for.
And I think that has to do with the bodies themselves, right? Because these bodies are seen as pit bull organizations. So as
yeah,
long as you fall under the legislation, with this type of these types of bodies like SEC and GDPR and stuff, as Alex would say, you can't play mad with these organizations because they will come after you, right? If you go back to the ransom X ransomware attack on TSTT in Trinidad way back in 2023, we had the idiot communications manager telling everybody that, well, we're not sure if it happened and nothing was done, nothing reached out. And then you had a bunch of journalists reaching out to Alex and I to find out, well, what is it that's actually in the data? And we had the cause to go into the data and show them, no, we have very sensitive, personally identifiable information. I think the information of the prime minister at the time was inside of there too, and the prime minister at the time said no, it wasn't his, and Alex had to prove wrong and said no, sir, this is your information. I think that's on some old Guardian newspaper article or something.
yeah.
But it's good to see that we do have some sort of regional collaboration with suits and stuff there with the governments and stuff. But it's some, but I know CARICOM Impacts is actually doing a lot of well and they a lot of good, sorry, and they're coming up with I think it's called CARICOM Fusion, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
fusion.
Um,
Fusion, I think
Yeah,
it is.
yeah,
yeah, that
fusion.
Anish was talking about fusion and stuff. So it's good to see that things are actually happening, even though we have a little bit of discord within CARICOM and well, not really within CARICOM. It's just kind of like Trinidad and everybody else at the moment. But the thing is, a little bit of opposition sometimes is good. It'll if you have everybody always on board the same page all the time, a little bit of opposition is good sometimes. All
There's
right,
also one
so
called there's one
mm,
called Carilec. Anybody can look it up. So
Carilec.
Carilec is a body for power utilities and utilities within the Caribbean region. So it's a unifying body, and they usually have a yearly conference with cybersecurity as like one of the major topics that they always talk about. And I think it was just last month, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And well, we spend a lot of time on education and stuff and InfoSec education. I mean, I'm just going to promote that. Yes, you can come and do the certified ethical hacker at CFSI or the certified threat intelligence analyst or one of those if you want to get further into these kinds of things. But while it is on the individual to take some, it's still on, we still need to have a little bit some more initiatives coming out of additional companies in private sector as well as the entire public sector and CARICOM and it could be an entire global initiative. Look at Alex, do you remember this training from the US where they had the whole ICS training that was free?
Yep.
Mhm.
CISA.gov.
Yeah,
It was always on the CISA,
yeah.
CISA.gov. Okay.
CISA.gov. Yeah.
Yeah, if you'll just look up free ICS training at CISA.gov, they have a whole bunch of free types of trading. A lot of it get towards critical infrastructure as well, right?
Yep.
And it's very useful. So it's great to see that on the US side, but I feel on the Caribbean side, I don't know, maybe CFSI will probably do that next year and just, have it done for everybody else. The last thing we want to wrap up here, we might go a few minutes over, just bear with us, is the upcoming threats to critical infrastructure. So I want to just go back to what I was speaking about with ransomware and the internal threats, right? Because yes, you could get attacked by a large ransomware company and they could do a lot of damage. But I was on a couple forums on the dark web speaking about why it is that we're not seeing a lot of very large attacks that happened on the dark web from the respective groups. Because I'm talking about some government attacks that I've seen throughout the region and I know about for sure, but I haven't seen anything on the from the ransomware group that supposedly attacked those agencies because usually they would put out this type of information out there. Now, it's not to say that they just decided not to, because they could have very well decided to not attract more heat towards them by adding, government information and stuff. But I do know from reading a lot of these forums that you have insider threats taking place because there are places you could go to actually download the encryptors and the decryptors. It really is to put a note stating within the payload stating that you've been attacked by Lockbit, by Killing, by Fog, by Akira, or something like that. You could go anywhere on the internet. You could ask ChatGPT to tell you exactly what these ransomware notes have inside of it. Someone can make a crypto wallet. Someone can make a site on the dark web using an onion link. It's really not that hard. But the insider threat is way more terrible now than it was previously
Oh yeah.
because you have people on the inside with, possibly the ability or capabilities to actually run a full scale ransomware attack. And the problem that you have there is that they already also know everything that happens inside your organization. And they could, let's say that they really want to be terrible at it and they bring down disaster recovery and business continuity aspects of your organization, right? And to be able to do this, if they wanted to create all of this, they could go and buy a subscription to Worm GPT, Fraud GPT on the dark web, one of those things, phishing kits, all of these things, and make it look very legitimate as if it were an external threat actor. So you have all of these AI attacks, and in combination with deepfake and synthetic threats. I mean, if you already have access to everyone on Teams and whatnot, you can a threat actor could include all of this with deepfake to actually carry out some sort of attack apart from a ransomware attack, right? Guys, if you all want to add anything here too one time, because I just yapping away, feel free.
Honestly, the AI introduction is one of like the major things in there. The geopolitics and the geopolitical escalations that we have going on is also one of the bigger things because at one point in time, critical infrastructure used to be safe because it was what you call air gapped, meaning there was no connection between those
Yeah.
systems and the outside world. Now that doesn't matter. There are ways around the air gaps. One of the more common ways, of course, is getting someone to plug in a flash drive for you. But there are known attacks that you could intercept the communication internally inside of there from outside and plant stuff. One of the greatest stories when it comes to that is the Stuxnet virus
Mm.
that was deployed in the Iranian nuclear power plants. supposedly that plant had no connection to the outside world, but one of the most powerful attacks against any state was deployed, and it brought down the entire power plant, and it spread from there to the rest of the world, and that's how we found out about Stuxnet.
Mhm.
So those geopolitical escalations is something really, and as you could tell, what's going on in our side of the woods right now with our next door neighbor. I mean, I'm not surprised that I'm surprised that you don't hear something else happening right now within our region.
I mean, hold that thought, because
Yeah,
I read
yeah.
that
Yeah.
I read yesterday that Maduro and Putin shook hands on some strategic protection, la di da, and we all know what's happening in Trinidad's backyard, front yard, side yard,
This side, yeah.
everything right now.
We
So
really have
yes,
to we really have to worry, because if Russia and China are involved, I mean, yes, we have wars fought physically on the physical front, but we have cyber warfare,
the crippling ones, yeah, the
right?
crippling ones, it extended from physical
Instead of
into
having
data.
to bomb and send troops to destroy the critical infrastructure, how about
Shut
we
down.
just infiltrate and shut it down, because we might want to come and take it and use it after. Or we
Yeah,
might want to
yeah.
come and take control of it and ransom it and say, hey, you know what, you need to back down, otherwise no water, no electricity.
Yeah. It cyber warfare is where what could possibly be World War Three, four, five. I don't know, whatever it is, but it's pretty scary, especially as we kind of in the middle of all of this right now. I mean, there is some comfort knowing that we have the protection of the US and stuff, but at the same time,
To what extent?
yeah, exactly, right. The possibilities are actually endless. All right, so to wrap up on everything, we spoke about a lot of stuff today. Just to recap with some key takeaways. So you have critical infrastructure, right? It's actually much broader than we think because as we spoke about, it's not just power plants, utilities and stuff, but also anything that's tied into it because once disrupted, it could actually, as we talking about now, could cripple national stability, which qualifies as critical infrastructure. And the Caribbean on the whole faces single point of failure risks. As Alex is talking about, Alex is in Curacao and St. Martin a lot, and pretty much there's really just the flow internet uh, and everything else, I guess, the watch talk click, everything is across there. But the critical infrastructure attacks, they're becoming far more deliberate and destructive. If you just look up for critical infrastructure attacks on Ukraine, for example, and you will see exactly what we are talking about here. You're going to read about every single type of attack that happened there. So it's just, if you want a case study, for example, that is unfortunately a very good one. The legacy technology that is certainly the Achilles heel for the entire Caribbean because even if you look at the outdated SCADA and the industrial control systems, the ICS systems, they were never designed with cybersecurity in mind because as Alex just said, everything was air gapped. Nothing was really networked, and you never even had the thought of having remote access back in those days. Usually, sometimes I go back to that image of Homer Simpson sitting down in his office in a nuclear plant, and he has that one little button that says "Do not press this button."
Press.
But now we have remote access to that little button itself when you really think about it, right? Um, Unity is our strongest defense, right? People and skills are the region's strongest defense, and we have to look more into frameworks and stuff because amidst all the chaos, the frameworks will turn the chaos into structure. Simple frameworks, ISO 27001, NIST cybersecurity framework. There's one called the IEC 62443 as well.
443. Yeah.
Yeah, these give critical infrastructure CI the actual test roadmap for risk management, detection, recovery, and the collaboration is always
And
a good thing there.
you have frameworks per industry, so you don't have to rely solely on a
Correct.
generalized one. You could pick one. Power companies have the NERC framework. The financial institutions have DORA out of Europe. You have the SCA for automotive and manufacturing, and you have a lot to choose from.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's it from me. Dale, you have anything you want to wrap up to? Dale or
Yeah,
Alex?
I mean, at the end of the day,
This night.
patch management, I always come down to it, patch management. Patch
Patch
management
management.
policies, enforce your patch management policies, update everything all the time. And
Well,
if you can't protect and monitor all the time.
What if
we,
it
we
can't
have
monitor?
we have a little
Well,
issue with the updating, huh?
I mean,
Because I don't know how much times I update Windows, and it
I
leads to
crash.
some major issue
No,
right
that
before
is
I have a
something.
meeting.
That is something you
exactly.
need to
So,
have a
so
tested environment
test
for
test
before you
in
roll it
Correct,
out.
test in
correct.
your sit environment, test in your development environment,
It,
not in
right,
production.
not in production, right?
Right?
Have a test environment and a
Right?
production
And for
environment.
the people that not in cybersecurity, please come join the dark side. We have a scarcity
Don't.
of us. Look at the eyes. I mean, we have bags, we have dark circles, we don't sleep, we have no help.
Yep.
That's the BCP plan.
My eyes were I didn't have these bags until I met Day One Alex. I'll just put that out there. All right,
Wow.
so as usual,
We
this
it's the weekend, right? It's the weekend, just remember.
I do so. We're waiting for the 5th of November, right? So
Jolly,
Oh,
hold on.
jolly wow.
Critical
That's not only
infrastructure has
time.
arrived.
No, it's not only time. Let's make it. I
Joe,
just wanted to add.
you're looking like a gremlin there with this little gray streak here. But please do continue. Come on,
I just wanted
Gizmo.
to add one more thing. I would say now is a fantastic time to test your BCP plan. Um, make sure everything is updated, and a lot of companies are. So some of the companies that I am actively involved with are actually in the process of testing BCP validation and ensuring that they can run off their DRs. Some of the DRs are on sites in the country or in the market, and some of it is off site, off of Trinidad and Tobago. So now would be a good time to ensure that your BCP validation plans are successful and you are actually able to conduct and resume operations in the event of a disaster.
And especially coming up to the holidays, sometimes you find that the corporations have a more lax atmosphere. Now is not the time to relax, test, and make sure everything is in place so that if something should happen, as Joe said, you have the ability to bring back up with minimal, hopefully minimal downtime, right? Not 10 weeks, but yeah. All right, so guys, thank you so much for your time. And to all of you all out there, thank you for making Cybersecurity Awareness Month 2025 a huge success. Thank you for joining us with CFSI and Tier 10 Technologies. Thank you, Mr. Deodat Ganga of DFG Enterprises. Thank you for Mr. Joel Gooding of Joel Gooding Enterprises. All right. And we have
Johnny
Johnny
Hector
and
himself.
Hector from Hector's buying NOS for this weekend or something. I don't know. All right, to Mr. Ricardo Frazier as well, to Anish Bechu. But to you all who joined us for the last 9 webinars, this was something that I just thought about the top of my head, and I reached out to these guys and I was like, guys, let's do something really big for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, not just some little post here and there. Let's actually give back. So what I'm really proud to say is that over 1,000 certificates were given out to the public. So I hope it was, I hope it was enjoyable in particular, right? And feel free to reach out to us at any point in time. It was fun. We look forward to maybe doing this next year. Um, I'll still try to see if I could pull off something physical next year to actually have
In person. Yeah.
yeah, sponsors and competitions and actual war rooms and demos and a whole dark web. Anyway, I don't want to get into that, but yeah, some good stuff, right? But everyone, thank you so much for joining us. My guys, thank you so much for always being here. I really depend on these guys here. They're not just my friends. These guys are family, right? So pity Johnny isn't here, but yeah, in the words of Vin Diesel, family.
Family.
Right. So to my entire CFSI family, you all, thank you so very much. Reach out to us, and we will talk soon. You all be safe and take care out there, right?
Take care, everybody.
All right.
All
Bye.
weekend.
Bring drinks.